Let's start where the pain began. The 1920s weren't just about leather helmets and small paychecks. This was the era when the NFL learned its first lesson about covering up scandals. In 1925, the Pottsville Maroons had their championship stolen from them in the league's first major controversy. They beat the Chicago Cardinals fair and square, but the NFL stripped their title for playing an exhibition game against Notre Dame. The real reason? Money and territorial rights. The league was already proving that rules meant nothing when profit was on the line. But the violence was the selling point. Players would show up drunk. Games turned into street fights. And nobody cared about long-term health because most guys wouldn't live long enough to worry about it. The NFL was marketing brutality as entertainment, and fans couldn't get enough. The 1930s brought the first glimpse of what would become the league's signature move, sweeping problems under the rug. Players were getting seriously hurt, but there was no medical protocols, no safety standards, just raw violence packaged as sport. Then came the 1940s, and suddenly the NFL had a bigger problem. World War II took away half their talent, and the league nearly collapsed. But instead of folding, they did what they'd always do: adapt, exploit, and keep the money flowing. The post-war NFL wasn't just rebuilding, it was engineering a new kind of brutality. The league merged with rivals, expanded rapidly, and started the systematic transformation of human beings into colliding projectiles. This is when the real damage started. Players were getting bigger, faster, and hitting harder. The introduction of the forward pass meant more violent collisions at higher speeds. But here's what they don't tell you. The NFL already suspected that this was causing brain damage. In the 1960s, team doctors were quietly documenting symptoms that looked suspiciously like what we now know as C.T.E. Players were showing up confused, aggressive, unable to remember their families. But instead of investigating, the league buried the reports and told players to walk it off. Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers weren't just winning championships, they were perfecting the art of strategic violence. The Lombardi sweep wasn't just a play call, it was a collision designed to inflict maximum damage. And the league loved it because violence sold tickets. Meanwhile, the first whispers of a gambling scandal emerged. Players were getting mysterious phone calls. Games had suspicious momentum swings, and the league's response was always the same: deny, deflect, destroy the evidence. But fans were eating it up. Television was making the NFL a national obsession, and every brutal hit was being replayed in slow motion. The league had found its formula: market the violence, hide the consequences, and never stop counting the money. The AFL-NFL merger wasn't just about creating one league. It was about monopolizing the violence. Now, there was nowhere else for players to go, which meant the NFL could treat them however they wanted. And they wanted them broken. The decade saw the birth of the NFL's most sinister creation, the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee. In 1994, they'd officially formed this committee, but the groundwork was being laid in the 70s. The NFL was already studying brain damage, not to prevent it, but to figure out how much they could hide. The Pittsburgh Steelers' steel curtain defense wasn't just dominant, they were deliberately targeting heads. Jack Tatum's hit on Darryl Stingley in 1978 left Stingley paralyzed for life. The NFL's response? They ruled it a clean hit and kept selling the violence. But behind closed doors, team doctors were reporting an epidemic of cognitive problems. Players in their 30s were developing dementia, having memory blackouts, and showing signs of severe depression. The NFL solution was to transfer these doctors to different teams or fire them entirely. The league also faced its first major gambling crisis. Rumors swirled that games were being fixed, that certain players were in the pocket of organized crime. When Chuck Noll mentioned a criminal element in the NFL, he wasn't just talking about dirty hits. He was exposing a culture of corruption that went to the very top. The 1980s NFL was running on cocaine, steroids, and silence. Players were dying, but nobody was allowed to connect the dots. This was the era when NFL players started dying by suicide at alarming rates. But here's the twisted part. The league knew why. Internal memos from this period, later revealed in lawsuits, showed team doctors describing symptoms identical to what we now know as C.T.E. But instead of helping players, the NFL created a culture of fear where speaking up meant losing your career. Mike Webster was football's Iron Man, but by the 1990s, he was homeless, tasering himself just to fall asleep. His brain was deteriorating in real time, and when he tried to get help from the NFL, they cut off his benefits and pretended he didn't exist. Meanwhile, the league was dealing with its first major drug scandal. Players were overdosing, getting arrested, and the NFL's response was to create a public relations machine designed to bury bad news. They weren't solving problems, they were just getting better at hiding them. The violence was escalating too. Lawrence Taylor's career was built on deliberate attempts to injure opponents. His hit on Joe Theismann wasn't an accident. It was the logical conclusion of a league that rewarded players for ending careers. But the most disturbing part? The NFL was secretly funding research into brain damage while publicly denying any connection between football and cognitive problems. They knew what they were doing to those men, and they kept doing it anyway. The salary cap era didn't just change how teams built rosters, it changed how they disposed of damaged players. Now, there was a financial incentive to hide injuries and rush players back onto the field before their brains could heal. This is when the NFL's cover-up became systematic. They hired their own scientists, funded their own studies, and created their own medical committees, all designed to produce research that absolved the league of responsibility. Dr. Bennett Amalu discovered C.T.E. in 2005, but the NFL didn't just deny his findings, they tried to destroy his career. They demanded his research be retracted, questioned his credentials, and used their influence to have him blacklisted from medical conferences. Meanwhile, players were dropping like flies. Andre Waters, Terry Long, Justin Strelzik, all suicides, all later found to have severe C.T.E. But the NFL's response was always the same. These were isolated incidents with no connection to football. The Brett Favre concussion situation exposed just how far the league would go. Favre was playing with severe cognitive problems, admitting years later that he couldn't remember entire seasons. But the NFL not only allowed it, they celebrated it as toughness. Then came Spygate and Deflategate, proving that cheating wasn't just tolerated in the NFL, it was expected. If teams were willing to break rules for minor competitive advantages, what were they willing to do when billions of dollars were at stake? Junior Seau's suicide in 2012 should have been the moment everything changed. He shot himself in the chest just to preserve his brain for research, leaving behind a note that essentially accused the NFL of murder. But even then, the league kept lying. The 2013 concussion settlement was supposed to compensate brain-damaged players, but it became another tool of deception. The NFL designed the settlement to deny as many claims as possible, using medical loopholes and racial bias to avoid paying out money they legally owed. Here's the most disgusting part. They were using race norming in cognitive tests, making it harder for black players to qualify for benefits. In a league that's 70% black, they were literally discriminating against the majority of their workforce. The settlement promised $765 million, but a recent investigation found that they denied hundreds of legitimate claims from players who died with confirmed C.T.E. they were still prioritizing profit over human lives. And the violence keeps escalating. Hits are harder than ever, concussions are more frequent, and players are still being pressured to play through brain injuries. The only difference is that now they have better lawyers. Tua Tagovailoa's concussion saga in 2022 proved nothing has really changed. He was clearly concussed against Buffalo, cleared to return, then nearly died 4 days later against Cincinnati. The NFL's response? They fired the independent neurologist and changed the protocols to make them even less protective. Today's NFL generates $18 billion annually by selling brain damage as entertainment. Every tackle you see, every big hit that gets replayed, every football move that draws applause, it's all contributing to an epidemic of cognitive destruction that the league continues to minimize. C.T.E. has been found in 345 of 376 deceased NFL players who've been studied. That's a 92% rate. But the NFL still won't admit that playing football causes brain damage. They hide behind phrases like more research is needed, while funding studies designed to muddy the waters. The league has perfected the art of public relations warfare. They'll find players for celebrating touchdowns, but not for hits that cause concussions. They'll suspend someone for 4 games for deflating footballs, but allow players with domestic violence convictions to keep playing. And the scandals keep coming. From Dan Snyder's financial crimes to ongoing gambling partnerships that create obvious conflicts of interest. The NFL has become a criminal enterprise disguised as a sport. But here is what really should terrify you. They're expanding internationally, targeting kids in other countries who don't understand the long-term costs. They're not just destroying American lives anymore, they're going global with their violence machine. Here's the truth they never want you to realize. The NFL isn't a sports league. It's a systematic exploitation of human bodies for profit, wrapped in patriotism and sold as entertainment. Every era we've covered has the same pattern: escalating violence, corporate cover-ups, and treating players as disposable products. The names change, the technology improves, but the fundamental business model remains the same. Find desperate men, destroy their bodies and brains, then discard them when they become inconvenient. The league has spent 50 years perfecting the art of hiding brain damage while maximizing the collisions that cause it. They've turned traumatic brain injury into primetime television and convinced an entire country that this is normal. So what are you going to do with this information? You can keep pretending that what you're watching is just a game. You can convince yourself that these men understand the risks and make their own choices. Or you can acknowledge the truth that every time you watch, every time you buy a jersey, every time you attend a game, you're funding a machine designed to destroy human brains for profit. The NFL will keep evolving, keep finding new ways to hide the damage, and keep convincing people that the violence is just part of the game. But now, you know better. The question isn't whether football causes brain damage. That debate is over. The question is whether you're comfortable being entertained by systematic human destruction. That's the real history of the NFL. Not the sanitized version they sell on Sunday, but the blood-soaked reality of America's most profitable form of organized violence. The choice is yours. Robert Griffin III, RG3, burst onto the NFL scene like a supernova. The second overall pick in 2012, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year after throwing for 3,200 yards and rushing for 815 more. His mobility and deep ball accuracy made him electric to watch. That rookie season saw him lead the Redskins to their first playoff appearance in years, looking like the franchise savior Washington had desperately needed. Then came the knee injury in the 2012 playoffs. Griffin insisted on playing through it, and what should have been a manageable injury became a career-altering catastrophe. But the real issue was his relationship with coaches. Griffin wanted to be a pocket passer when his elite skill was mobility. He clashed with coaching staffs about his role and refused to adapt his game. His accuracy declined, his decision-making suffered, and his confidence evaporated. By 2015, he was benched in Washington and bounced around the league as a backup. Griffin had the tools to be a perennial Pro Bowler, but couldn't evolve when his body and the game demanded it. Vince Young was supposed to be the future of the quarterback position. The third overall pick in 2006 won Offensive Rookie of the Year after leading the Titans to the playoffs with his unique blend of arm strength and athleticism. His college resume at Texas was legendary, a national championship, and some of the most clutch performances in college football history. In the NFL, he showed flashes of that brilliance, including a 99-yard touchdown drive to beat the Cardinals. But Young struggled with the mental demands of professional football. Reports emerged of emotional breakdowns, walking away from the team, and difficulty processing complex NFL defenses. Financial troubles mounted despite earning millions. The Titans moved on after just 5 seasons, and Young bounced around the practice squads before retiring at 30. He had all the physical tools to be a franchise quarterback, but couldn't handle the psychological pressures that came with the position. Kellen Winslow Jr. was a revolutionary tight end prospect. The 6th overall pick in 2004 combined size, speed, and receiving ability in ways the position had never seen. At 6'4" and 242 pounds with a 4.45 speed, he was essentially a massive wide receiver who could line up anywhere. His college tape at Miami showed him dominating like no tight end ever before him. Early in his NFL career, he proved the hype was real with over 1,100 receiving yards in 2007. But injuries derailed everything. A motorcycle accident in 2005 nearly cost him his leg. Achilles and knee injuries followed. When he was healthy, off-field issues emerged. Legal troubles escalated, culminating in 2019 when he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for multiple sexual assaults. Winslow Jr. had the talent to redefine the tight end position, but threw it all away through reckless decisions that ultimately harmed others and destroyed his legacy. Josh Gordon wasn't just talented, he was otherworldly. In 2013, he exploded for 1,646 receiving yards in just 14 games while catching passes from Brandon Weeden and Jason Campbell. No elite quarterback, no offensive mastermind, just Gordon torching NFL secondaries like it was a warm-up drill. He posted back-to-back 200-yard games that season, joining an exclusive club of only 3 receivers in NFL history. At 6'3", with 4.5 speed and magnetic hands, he was unguardable when locked in. Then came the suspensions, DUI in 2014, substance policy violations that cost him his entire seasons. By 2021, Gordon had been suspended 6 times, not fined, not benched, completely removed from the game. He missed nearly 80 games across 5 seasons. The Patriots tried to salvage him with Tom Brady personally mentoring him, but another violation ended that experiment. Gordon had Hall of Fame talent, but couldn't overcome his demons, become the ultimate what-if story. Johnny Manziel. When the Browns drafted Johnny Manziel 22nd overall in 2014, they weren't just selecting a quarterback, they were buying into a phenomenon. Johnny Football was a college legend who won the Heisman as a freshman and made Alabama's defense look ordinary. His improvisation skills were video game level ridiculous, and scouts saw Russell Wilson with better arm strength. But Manziel wanted the lifestyle without the work. He showed up to rookie minicamp already carrying party rumors. By 2015, he was lying to coaches about Vegas trips while wearing disguises, blonde wigs, fake mustaches, like some discount spy movie. The Browns benched him repeatedly. By 2016, he was out of the NFL entirely after domestic violence investigations and multiple rehab stints. He later revealed bipolar disorder, but admitted he'd intentionally tried to sabotage his own career. The talent was real, but Manziel chose celebrity over football. Justin Blackmon was the most dominant college receiver of his era, a 2-time Biletnikoff winner at Oklahoma State and the 5th overall pick in 2012. Scouts called him Des Bryant with better hands. Even catching passes from Blaine Gabbert, he managed 865 yards as a rookie. When he was on the field, he was unstoppable.
His route running was precise and his hands were reliable under pressure. The suspensions started immediately. 4 games in 2013 for substance abuse violations. When he returned, he torched the Chargers for 190 yards in a single game. Vintage Blackman. 2 weeks later, he failed another test and was banned indefinitely. That was the last time he played professional football. No reinstatement attempts, no comeback stories. He just vanished from the NFL landscape, leaving behind only memories of what could have been. Antonio Brown was once the most unstoppable receiver in football. From 2013 to 2018, he led the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. 7 straight Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pro selections. He turned routine slants into 80-yard touchdowns and made circus catches look effortless. Ben Roethlisberger called him the most talented player he'd ever played with. Then, everything unraveled in spectacular fashion. It started in Pittsburgh with sideline outbursts and missed practices. The Raiders signed him to a massive contract, but he showed up with frostbitten feet, fought with coaches over his helmet, and was released before playing a single game. The Patriots picked him up, and he lasted 1 game before sexual assault allegations and threatening text messages got him cut. More accusations followed, along with erratic social media behavior that became impossible to ignore. Brown had the talent to be remembered as the greatest receiver of his generation, but his career imploded as teams stopped calling despite his undeniable ability. Plaxico Burress. In February 2008, Plaxico Burress caught the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 42, helping the Giants upset the undefeated Patriots. At 6'5", with reliable hands, he'd become one of the league's premier red zone threats with 2 1,000-yard seasons and over 550 career catches. On November 28, 2008, Burress accidentally shot himself in the leg at a Manhattan nightclub. The loaded, unlicensed Glock slipped from his waistband, and when he reached to catch it, the gun discharged. The injury wasn't serious, but the gun charge was devastating under New York's strict weapons laws. He served 20 months in prison. By the time he returned in 2011, Burress was 34 and the game had moved on. One accidental moment ended a potential Hall of Fame career. Ray Rice was the heart of Baltimore's offense. 3 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl ring, and 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons from scrimmage. At 5'8", he wasn't physically imposing, but his vision and cutting ability made him one of the league's most complete backs. In 2012, he nearly carried the Ravens to their Super Bowl victory with his versatility and clutch performances. Then came the elevator incident. TMZ released footage of Rice punching his fiancée unconscious in an Atlantic City casino. When the full video surfaced showing the actual punch, the Ravens released him and the NFL banned him indefinitely. Rice won his legal appeal and was technically eligible to play again, but no team would touch him. The video was unshakable. His career ended not with declining performance, but with one moment of violence that erased everything he'd accomplished. Aldon Smith entered the NFL like a wrecking ball. Drafted 7th overall by the 49ers in 2011, he recorded 14 sacks as a rookie. The following year, he nearly broke Michael Strahan's single-season record with 19.5 sacks. At 23, he was already All-Pro and looked destined for Canton with his devastating combination of speed and power. Then came the arrests. DUI and weapons charges became routine. In 2013, he missed 5 games for rehab. In 2014, he was suspended 9 games after a house party shooting. The 49ers cut him in 2015. Multiple teams tried to salvage his career, but more legal troubles followed. In 2021, another felony DUI ended everything permanently. Smith had the talent to be Von Miller's rival for best pass rusher of his generation, but became a cautionary tale about self-destruction. Darren Sharper was one of the most feared safeties of his era, a 5-time Pro Bowler and All-Pro selection. He recorded 63 career interceptions and was known for his game-changing ability to read quarterbacks and create turnovers. His 2009 season with the Saints was legendary. 9 interceptions and a Super Bowl championship. He was respected as a leader and had the intelligence and ball skills that defined elite safeties. But behind the scenes, Sharper was a predator. In 2014, he was charged with rape and sexual assault in multiple states. The investigation revealed he had been drugging and assaulting women across the country for years, using his NFL status to gain trust before attacking victims. In 2016, he was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Sharper didn't just waste his football talent, He used his platform to harm innocent people, making his fall from grace one of the most disturbing in NFL history. Henry Ruggs III was supposed to revolutionize the Raiders' offense. Drafted 12th overall in 2020, ahead of Justin Jefferson and C.T.E. Lamb because of his game-breaking 4.27 speed, in 2021, he was averaging over 19 yards per catch, turning simple slants into explosive plays and looking like the deep threat the Raiders had envisioned. On November 2nd, 2021, it all ended in the worst possible way. Ruggs was driving 156 miles per hour in his Corvette with a blood alcohol content twice the legal limit when he slammed into a Toyota RAV4. The car burst into flames, killing 23-year-old Tina Tintor and her dog. Ruggs was found sobbing on the curb, but it was too late. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. At 24, his career was over, not due to injury or performance, but because of a fatal decision that destroyed multiple lives in an instant. Aaron Hernandez was Tom Brady's favorite red zone target. In 3 seasons with the Patriots, he caught 175 passes for 18 touchdowns and signed a $40 million extension. Alongside Rob Gronkowski, he formed the most dangerous tight end duo in NFL history. At 6'1", with receiver speed and reliable hands, Hernandez was revolutionizing the position and seemed destined for the Hall of Fame. Behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. On June 17, 2013, Odin Lloyd was found shot 6 times near Hernandez's home. Within days, Hernandez was arrested for first-degree murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, text messages, GPS data, ballistics, matches. During the trial, prosecutors painted a picture of paranoia, violence, and possible gang connections. In 2015, he was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. 2 years later, Hernandez was found dead in his cell, ruled a suicide. Posthumous brain scans revealed severe C.T.E. He was 27, having thrown away a Super Bowl future for a double life that ended in tragedy. Lawrence Phillips was a force of nature at Nebraska, a 2-time national champion with a rare combination of speed, power, and vision that made him a guaranteed top 10 pick, despite serious character concerns, including a college suspension for assaulting his girlfriend. The Rams selected him 6th overall in 1996, hoping the NFL would provide structure and discipline. It didn't. Phillips missed practices, clashed with coaches, and faced multiple assault allegations in St. Louis. The Rams cut him mid-season. Every team that gave him a chance regretted it. The Dolphins, 49ers, and others all had similar experiences. His post-NFL life became a timeline of escalating violence. In 2005, he was sentenced to decades in prison for assault and reckless endangerment. While serving time, he was charged with murdering his cellmate. Before that trial could begin, Phillips was found dead in his cell in 2016, ruled a suicide. He was 40. Phillips had Hall of Fame talent, but couldn't control the demons that ultimately destroyed him and hurt others along the way. His story represents the most extreme example of how unchecked personal issues can not only waste incredible athletic ability, but also lead to devastating consequences for everyone involved. These players remind us that talent alone isn't enough. The NFL is filled with incredibly gifted athletes, but the ones we remember as legends combine their physical gifts with discipline, character, and the ability to make smart decisions off the field. For every cautionary tale, there are countless players who maximize their potential through hard work and smart choices. Which of these stories do you think was the most tragic? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more NFL legends and forgotten stories, check out these other videos.